Welcome to the Golf Report podcast. I'm joined by Mike Veverka, the Director of Golf at the University of Lynchburg. Coach, how are you doing today? And thanks for your time.
Yeah, no, we're doing great. Got some warm weather ahead of us this week, which is super exciting this time of year. It can be a little bit of hit or miss here in Central
Yeah.
Virginia, so we're expecting some high into mid 60s throughout the week. So primo stuff to get ready for our first couple of events heading into this weekend and the next weekend as well. So we're
Okay,
excited.
so 60s there in Virginia. So where your team, I know you have your men's team's first tournament will be in Georgia,
Mhm.
starting Monday. Will your team get to do any, practicing,
Yeah.
to prepare for your tournament, this week, given the warm weather?
Oh, for sure. We run a pretty kind of scheduled week for all of our practices throughout, but we've been able to get in close to five or six qualifying rounds as well, leading up into last week when we had a little bit of a snowstorm. We call it a snowstorm here. It's two to
Yep.
4 inches of snow,
Hmm.
and everything shuts down. But we're able to do that and get some good qualifying in and some good quality practice in. Guys were out yesterday. We'll be back out there this afternoon getting some reps in. But yeah, chasing the warm weather down south for sure this weekend.
Nice. And do your teams, do you have any courses that your team typically, plays at when you get to go outdoors?
Yeah, we're primarily out at Boonesboro Country Club.
Okay.
It's the only private course in about a 45-mile radius.
Hmm.
Host a few strong amateur events throughout the summer and things like that. But just an old school course that it doesn't show its age in the
Hmm.
same way that a lot of old courses do. It stands up to the modern test where these guys are still hitting at 320 and it's still challenging. Um, so we utilize that. We also go out to Ivy Hill Golf Club. Depending upon availability at each course when we want to change it up for qualifying and things like that. So, yeah,
Yeah,
we're spoiled with some good options around here.
that's great that you get some 60s. I live in the New Haven, Connecticut area, and we are like in the 40s right now. We might get into the 50s, so not as warm, Kim.
Hey,
Um,
still warm enough to get outside and swing, right?
yeah, but anyway, just tell me, how has the winter been for you and your teams? Just how it's been, in Virginia this winter?
Yeah, it's been pretty mild up until last week when we got a little bit of snow.
Yeah.
But up until then, it was kind of mid 50s, 60s kind of thing. So the players, a number of them played tournaments over the winter break. We had a
Okay.
kind of about a month and a half long winter break in our academic calendar. So a few guys went down, played some tournaments in the Carolinas, some in Florida, some out to Arizona, just to kind of keep the game sharp on the men's side and same on the women's there. So we're kind of getting ready to hit the ground running again in Savannah this weekend,
Yeah.
and then the women head down to Statesboro, Georgia, the following weekend. So we're almost in the full swing of it, pun intended,
Mhm.
and we're excited to get going.
Yeah. So you just brought up an interesting point. College golf. In your team, you take a break. Your last tournament was at the end of October, and then you start again. In March, so you get a few months off. And I've talked to, some even top, Division One players, and some of them were prioritizing, rest, not playing any tournaments
Mm-hmm.
over the winter, and some players were saying, that they have to keep the game sharp. They have to keep competing, even if it's one tournament over the winter.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, you mentioned some of your players were competing in tournaments, in the Carolinas and
Mm-hmm.
down south. Do you encourage your players, to try to play and compete at least in one tournament if they can over the
Yeah,
winter, or is it just different for each player? What they need
yeah,
over the winter?
for sure. Yeah, it's absolutely kind of individualized based upon that player and their style and what works best for them. Because we have some that if they focus on that rest and kind of getting away from the sport for a week or two at a time,
Yeah.
they come back and they're sharp, right? They're just ready to rock. But there are also players who need that kind of consistent competitive drive, kind of tuned into their gears.
Yeah.
So it really just what works best, and we've kind of been able to go down the list of the roster and kind of peg out what works best for each player, and we kind of determine our off-season programming dependent upon that.
Yeah.
Most of them end up playing a lot of golf in the off season and do a lot of competitive stuff, whether it's within their own club or with other college players that they know back home and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely individualized
Mhm.
because it's weird because you got to focus on that individualized nature, but at the same time get them ready for a team sport coming back here in March.
Yeah. And for you and your players, the spring season is very busy, even at the Division 3 level,
Mm-hmm.
your team is going to start in Savannah, Georgia next Monday. And even
Mm-hmm.
after that, you finish on Tuesday, and then right, Sunday you have another tournament in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So that involves, traveling, maybe playing a practice round, there's a lot that goes into it. In the spring season, for college golf is, very jam-packed and, just in a few months, and it's very busy. Because, players, traveling to tournaments, playing in tournaments. Then they have to balance, academics. So just for you as coach and for your players, just how do you balance, and how do they, navigate the, very busy spring season, with lots of tournaments and just a very short time.
Yeah. No, it can get hectic at the easiest times of the
Yeah.
semester, but being proactive, especially from an academic standpoint, is something that we harp on daily.
Mhm.
Getting ahead, just like you do in a round of golf, right? We don't want to start out bogey, 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 and then try to play catch up, right? We want to get out the gate with a couple pars and a couple birdies. Um, Same thing in the classroom where we're proactive with our communication with our professors, with our coursework. If there are long-term assignments and we have some downtime, it's really in their best interest to take care of those assignments ahead of time so that we can come into the heart of that season, which is jam-packed into March and April, and be able to kind of focus on the golf when we're out there and not stress about a 15-page paper
Yeah.
or their thesis defense and things like that going on after that. It just allows them to kind of free up their mind, and we all know like if your mind's bogged down, like your game's going to kind of follow suit.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of that. We'll also do some study halls and things like that on the road as well, just to make sure that everyone's kind of staying on top of things when we have those available hours to do so.
Mhm.
And then our professors are phenomenal with working with our athletes, just because they know the amount of time that they're putting in on the road, but they take care of business in the classroom as well. So it allows us and affords us that ability to travel and play that schedule that we do.
Yeah. So given, that your men's team begins next Monday and then your women begin the next week,
Mm-hmm.
your teams are in Virginia. So just, tell me how do your teams preparing, get ready for the spring seasons, given, you're in Virginia and you
Mm-hmm.
deal with the winter weather. Just,
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about, how your teams navigate the winter weather and how your teams, get ready for the spring season.
For sure. Yeah. Anytime it gets above like 32 to 35 degrees outside, we're going to do our best to get outside.
Okay.
But if it does dip down, because it did last week, we're fortunate that we have a beautiful indoor facility here on campus and have a couple of simulators and launch monitors where they're able to go inside,
Okay.
dial in those distances, and kind of get some reps in there, kind of see ball flight, and kind of visualize everything as it goes. We've also got some putting setups in there where they can roll 35-foot lag putts as well as those all crucial 4 to 6 footers and things like that. And it's a spot where they can come in there, hang out, do some homework, knock out some putts, play each other in ping pong, and then go knock out some iron shots and wedge shots, and then when the weather turns warm, head outside and kind of stick to our practice plans, and then get out there and play some golf and get competitive and get ready to rock and roll down south.
Yes, Coach. I don't think I asked you yet, but can you tell me a little bit about University of Lynchburg? I was, doing some research on your school. You're in Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
Division III school, and you're in the ODAC.
Mm-hmm.
So just tell me a little bit about your university.
Yeah, we're an awesome family community environment here at Lynchburg. I think a lot of schools say that, but it's extremely evident here within not just the golf teams or the athletic department, but in the school as a whole. Um, Everyone's super supportive of one another and supportive of the goals that we have as an institution and as a department and as a team. It's the type of athletic department coming from my standpoint where every coach is extraordinarily competitive and hates to lose. And I think that was evident last year. I think we finished top 19 in the country in the Learfield Directors Cup. So, top 20 program in all of Division III, which is the largest division in the country, is awesome. We had 12 conference titles, and then sent 14 teams to their NCAA national championships or regional championships as well. So it's a competitive group throughout, not just within the program, but the professors and the academic staff are kind of attuned to that as well, where they're all really competitive and making sure that all of our students are prepped and ready to rock and roll
Yeah.
when it comes time for graduation and things like that. But it's a beautiful campus that's kind of nestled in one of the hills of Lynchburg. Lynchburg's nickname is the Hill City. So you're always going to get a good leg workout and a good calf workout walking around. But it's a phenomenal group of people that just make this place amazing each day.
Yeah. So I wanted to touch on, highlight from your men's teams. Fall season, you finished second at Oglethorpe in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
You had two, individuals finish in the top 10. So just tell me about, your team's second place finish back in October
Yeah.
in Georgia and just, how did you feel like, the fall seasons went for both your men's and your women's teams?
Yeah, no, it was a fun fall. I think the men got off to a slower start overall in the first 1 to 2 events. Kind of took them a little bit of time to get the gears going. And then West Pines was awesome. They were kind of battling back and forth all day long with that top spot with Oglethorpe, and ultimately left there with the runner up. But I think it gave them some fuel going into Florida for the final event, to kind of get the game up and running. I'm sorry, not for the final event, but for the rest of the semester there. And it gives them the motivation to not just stay stagnant or stay complacent with themselves over the winter, and know that they have the game that they need to kind of get back to going into the spring. So they're really driven right now. I think they're excited to kind of get back out there and see those top teams in the nation again in that first event. So we play one of the top 5 strongest schedules in the nation throughout. So we're excited to kind of get back to battling with that. And same on the women's side, starting out in Georgia as well with a really stacked field, and then back down to St. Simon's Island after that with another extraordinary field as well. Excited to kind of get going because I think on the women's side, we got things kind of sharpened up right at that last event. And I think a lot of the players kind of felt that missing piece click into gear. So they're working on moving that into the spring. And from what I've seen in our play so far on the course in the off season, we're going to be ready to hit the ground and rock and roll. So yeah, a lot of fun stuff ahead. 2 awesome groups that just make coming to work a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you were kind of answering my next question, but given your seasons begin, next week and the week after, just tell me a little about your men's and women's teams, and just what do you see for your 2 teams this spring season?
Yeah, I think the goal for both is kind of similar. I think they both want to rack up a win.
Yeah.
Going into it, the women's team has done an extraordinary job of that in the past few years.
Okay.
I mean, last year we ended up with 4 team wins and
Wow.
and just cruised in and had a great time. They're both awesome groups of people that get along really well, and it makes life on the road really easy when they're just a giant family extension of sorts. And they're tremendous to be around day in and day out. But
Yeah.
I think grabbing up a win somewhere in the semester for both teams is always the goal, and then going into ODAX and the national championship after that is the long term goal. So it's a long extended season. So we got to pace ourselves going through and not get too energetic or too burnt out early on, and light those matches when we need them, and
Yeah,
have some fun doing it.
that's great. So coach, you're the director of golf at
Mhm.
Lynchburg. So I was interested, in learning more about, what are some of your roles and responsibilities as director of golf? And you have a head men's golf coach, Alan Smith.
Mhm.
So, what are your roles and responsibilities as director of golf, and how does that differ, from your head men's golf coach, Alan Smith? What
Yeah,
roles and responsibilities he has, for your
yeah,
men's team?
for sure. So we're super blessed that we were able to get Coach Allen back. He was here for 2 years, and then went down to Guilford College for a year,
Okay.
and was the head coach down there. And brought him back up here because he's an incredible asset to have, an incredible recruiter, and an awesome on course golf coach. He's just a great person overall. So being able to kind of pull the reins away from the men's program and give them over to Coach Al has been tremendous because it allows me to focus on the kind of behind closed doors aspects of the program, from fundraising to recruiting on both sides, but just making sure that our partnerships are always in great spaces, making sure that we have all the resources in place for all of our athletes to continue trying to be the best they can be on the course and in the classroom. And then it allows me to focus on the women's team a little bit more specifically as the women's head coach and director of golf. So and from where I sit, it allows me to stay at home a little bit more, which is awesome. So we have a young son, and another son coming any day now.
Okay.
We're currently in that 2-week go time window. So super excited about that. But that's afforded me the availability to be able to have that quality time with the family as well, and not be on the road twice the amount of time. And just it allows me to do some of my other duties on campus as well. Like I help operate all of our home game day operations and things like that. And so trying to help out our department in any which way I can, and because they've done a great job of helping us along the way. So trying to make sure everyone's as competitive as they can be in every sport across the
Yeah,
board.
that's great. So I wanted to now touch on, some of your background. You
Mm-hmm.
grew up in Maryland. Just tell me
Mm-hmm.
about, growing up in Maryland, and how you got started playing golf.
Yeah, no, we where I grew up in Maryland, we were a 5 minute drive from Maryland, West Virginia, Virginia, kind of right there on the Potomac River, where Harper's Ferry and everything in the Shenandoah meet.
Mhm.
So a beautiful part of the country, and kind of enwrapped in history. So was able to, selfishly enjoy that growing up, be able to see all those historical monuments and battlefields and things like that throughout my childhood was awesome. Um, and got introduced to the game really young. I was 3 years old um,
Okay.
when my granddad kind of put a club in my hand. Both granddads played golf, and they both had a knack for kind of pushing me along in the sport. But played every other sport I could growing up as well. But golf was the one that was always in the constant side of the background. Um, so typical childhood of playing every sport you could. Loved baseball, played that for 14 years as well, and
Okay.
um, but golf was always the one that kind of came back around
Mhm.
and provided me the opportunity to go to school, um, pursue some education to help my love for teaching just in general and my love for the game of golf and the history of golf. So being able to tie those two into to coaching has just been awesome. It doesn't feel much like work sometimes when we're able to come in and talk about the sport we love. Be able to guide these young men and women on their growth journeys throughout their college years. It's a tremendous blessing to be able to do that.
Yep.
Um, and so, I'm blessed to say that I grew up in an awesome place and be able to take, all the things that I learned in my childhood and pass them on to the next generation of even better golfers, because these kids are getting insanely good now, in comparison to when I was coming up through junior golf and high school golf and things like that. So, um,
Mhm.
now still love every sport I could possibly get to watch on TV, and hoping that my two sons follow suit and love sports as much as I do. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was a blessing for sure.
Mhm. And you attended the University of Maryland Eastern Shore.
Mhm.
So just tell me, what drew you to Maryland Eastern Shore, and just how was your time, getting
Yeah,
to play college golf there?
no, it was a bunch of fun. So it was at the time there were 20 schools across the country that had a professional golf management major in the
Okay.
school. It's kind of diminished a little bit from there, but they were one of the few that allowed you the opportunity to play on the golf team, the NCAA team, and be in the major, just because of the time commitments that both took up.
Okay.
But it was one of the few that allowed that. So couple that with some substantial scholarship along the way, it kind of made the decision for me, and had an awesome time. Was not the best college golfer. I think I figured the game out a lot more after I graduated.
Mhm.
Um, so I had a lot of fun chasing, little mini tour events around and things like that afterwards, um, and making all the silly mistakes that anyone trying to make the professional game a part of their life will do. But now I get to talk to my players who might endeavor to do that, and like this is all the things that I did wrong. So you don't have to go out and make those same mistakes. But had a great time at UMES. Made some friends that are just still my closest friends to this day. People that were in my wedding, and things like that. So had a tremendous experience, and the knowledge that I took there from playing there from my academic side has just been invaluable. And yeah, I had an awesome time, and still get the chance to call up those old college buddies and reminisce and say back in the day, man, all
Mhm.
that stuff. So it was a bunch of fun.
Yeah, that's great. So prior to Lynchburg, you were a PGA assistant at Georgia Southern, and you were a
Mm-hmm.
volunteer assistant coach at Bridgewater College. So can you just tell me a little bit about some of your background, prior to Lynchburg, and just
Yeah.
what drew you to become a college coach?
Yeah, so I'm a Class A PGA professional by trade, for
Okay.
about a little over a decade now. So teaching pro, club pro, by the heart of it. So did that alongside working with the Bridgewater College teams as well in Harrisonburg, and then kind of did the same thing down at Georgia Southern. So I was able to teach down there from an instructional standpoint, help operate a little bit of the golf course there, but primarily teaching the game, and then that afforded me the opportunity to continue working in the industry that I love. I also pursued a master's degree while I was there, so I was
Okay.
really busy for a few years,
Mhm.
um, but had a tremendous time. But South Georgia gets warm, and teaching lessons for 6 to 8 hours a day on the lesson tee and pants was a recipe for a lot of warm days, and wanted to get a little bit closer back to family. And Lynchburg was just that kind of perfect mix spot, right in the middle. So just far enough south where it stays a little bit warmer, but not too far from home. We want to be able to head back home and see the families.
Yeah. So I think this would give good perspective. You know, you mentioned you got a master's degree at Georgia Southern, and you
Mm-hmm.
were a PGA assistant there. So how was it, being a PGA assistant, you mentioned teaching for
Mm-hmm.
sometimes several hours a day. How was that? Teaching, being a PGA assistant and also getting your master's degree. How was that,
But
and how was it balancing, both of those?
yeah, I think the background of being a student athlete kind of transitioned right into that, where time management is such an overloading principle that we focus on. So that made it a little bit easier, but it was a very busy couple of years while I was going through those studies. Um, I love the challenging aspects of academia. So I think we should always be striving to learn, right? That's kind of been the mindset behind going for that master's degree while working. Um, it's also part of the reason why I'm thinking about starting a doctorate program this coming fall. So I think I just like being overloaded and busy and challenging myself. But had a great time and was able to apply some of those things that I learned in the classroom right away to not only my coaching, but to my teaching on the lesson tee as well. So a lot from the psychological standpoint and things like that. But it all wraps up to be tools in your toolbox as a coach that you can pull out at any given notice.
Yeah. So you've now been at Lynchburg since 2017. Just tell me a
Mhm.
little bit about how you ended up at Lynchburg, and just what has it been like, coaching at Lynchburg since 2017.
Yeah, for sure. No, so I started here, and we just had the men's team at the time when I came in. I think our
Okay.
men's program was like 185th or 190th in the country when I
Okay.
came in. So we had some room for improvement, and that was one of my goals early on was get the team on track, but also try to get the women's program up and started because we had a women's team for like 2 to 3 years in the mid 60s. Um, then it kind of lay dormant once that coach left. So that was a striving goal, a two-part goal for me coming in, and you're slowly able to kind of get the culture pieces right in the program, get all the facility pieces in the right place for the program, um, get the right support system behind us to make sure that we're able to do all of those things and get the women's team off the ground. So I think we've been able to do that pretty successfully and had a lot of fun doing it. And yeah, it was Lynchburg's a really cool place from a coach's standpoint because we have such an awesome, just a coaching staff in general. That's some have been here for 30 years, some more, but we have coaches who have been in every division, have seen championships from every division, national championships, have coached gold medalists and things like that. So, the wealth of coaching knowledge from the people that I work around each day has been awesome.
Mhm.
And it's certainly helped mold me into the coach that I am today. And I'm certainly grateful for that opportunity. And my wife and I love it here. Lynchburg's an awesome city in general, just for a young family, and it's growing ever more each day.
Mhm.
And it's a fun place to hang out each day.
Yeah. So you mentioned your women's golf team, you had it for, I believe you said 2 years in the 60s, and then
Mhm.
the women's golf team then got started again in the 2019-2020 season. So
Mhm.
just for you, what was it like, reestablishing the women's golf team and just having the women's golf team, get started again in the 2019?
Yeah, no, it's been a blast. It's been fun being able to balance recruiting the two sports at the same time.
Mhm.
But we were able to see some immediate success off of that, which is pretty abnormal, I think, from starting up a program standpoint. So in those short few years that we've had the program, I've had a number of academic All-Americans that they've just been killing it in the classroom as well as the golf course. I think we racked up 12 tournament titles as a team, 14 or 15 individual medalist honors as well. Um, we had a we had two national championship invitees on the individual side, and All American.
Okay.
So we've been able to enjoy some success from a really early standpoint, and it's kind of helped continue to push that program along each year. So it's a really fun group now. we're kind of getting into that standpoint of like an established program. I think in the first 10 years of any sport, you're kind of still in that establishing kind of phase. So, these young ladies are able to still etch their names along the record book and kind of change it each year, it seems, which is a lot of fun. And I think a really cool opportunity that not a lot of people get to experience. So it's been a tremendous amount of fun. And I think it's brought a lot to our programs from both teams as a standpoint.
Yeah. And finally, Coach, I just wanted to ask, what do you enjoy most about getting to coach in college golf, and just what do you enjoy most about getting to coach both, the men's team and the women's team?
Oh man, that's a tough one. Watching the kids' faces when they pull out the first win or a career best, they sink that putt on 18 to have a career round, is just tremendous. But when they come into the office and are super pumped about a grade that they got on a quiz or an exam or a project, I think that's even more fulfilling. But getting those letters in the mail a year or two or more down the road and getting invited to players' weddings and things like that, is even more so exciting as a coach. Just to be able to say that you played a really small role in this person's life is such a blessing. And we don't. I try not to take it for granted any day, because you get a chance to kind of get people in the right direction if need be, and watching them grow up and make families of their own has just been tremendously awesome to watch. So again, there are days when you come in here and it feels like you're kind of stealing money, because you're doing the job that you love, and being able to work with some awesome people and some amazing student athletes. So it's a fun job, and it keeps me young, and it keeps me going each day. So